Uh, and without further ado, I'll welcome the co-host for today. That is, which is sorry, not that, not her. That's her, Lauren.
Hello.
I switched to a different screen. Oh, okay. It opened. It showed Wikipedia, and I was like, okay, hold on.
Well, I mean, that is technically a co-host.
That's right. Uh, okay, so uh, we are continuing where we left yesterday, but with a new topic. But before that, I'll start
Sorry,
recording
sorry.
because we are also doing our podcast recording simultaneously. I should start recording my voice. And today we have background music, something we didn't have yesterday. And also, I realized, I mean, just building upon, making tiny improvements, I realized that we didn't make a separate introduction for the podcast. So I think we'll do that now while we are live. Uh, so it's the same like how we used to do it before, right?
Yeah, but it has
If you
been like a
remember.
year since we did that. So.
Oh yeah, it's usually like hi, and then you say hi, and then you say,
Oh, okay.
or do we need to do that, or it's like we just go
I know
directly?
we did say hi already. So
I mean that okay, that was for the Twitch though. I mean not for the podcast
yeah, but
separate.
you could kind of use it for both.
I could, yeah. I could. But I think maybe I started recording my voice just now. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I'll borrow it from the stream. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I'll do it. I just realized that on the main screen it still says Mary Shelley and Frankenstein, so I need to change that.
Yes, that was yesterday.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Although I imagine some of the concepts will be similar.
Yes, I mean yeah, of course, science fiction and stuff. And also, I think the one thing that I did find in common, okay, while I edit this, is what was that? Uh, okay, I can't remember right now, but we'll get to that. I'm sure. Uh, so Philip A. Dick, and what do you what do you think is his most popular work, so that I can put it on the page, on the main screen?
Well, it depends because I guess from Hollywood, Blade Runner,
Blade Runner.
but
Okay.
but he would have
Perfect.
called it. But he called it "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep." He was one for long titles. Was Philip K. Dick?
Yeah, I noticed. uh, I'll go with Blade Runner because it's his most recognized, like Frankenstein for yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'll say Philip K. Dick and Blade Runner. Okay.
It's tricky because there's so many.
Yeah. Uh, so let's dive into it straight away without much further ado. So today we are talking about Philip K. Dick. What before that? What are you drawing today?
Oh, I'm
I
still
mean,
doing my train.
oh, it's the same train. Okay.
I'm on the second wheel.
Progress. Just no, it can't run on two wheels. It needs more wheels.
Well, the engine only needs two. The
Oh,
stuff
you're,
behind
you're
it
only
needs
doing
more.
the engine. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you
Well,
are you
it
planning
won't.
to?
It won't fit on the page otherwise.
Yes, true. Are you planning on coloring it in as well?
Yeah. I tend to scan my work and then paint it because I always mess it up, and I prefer the original. So that way I don't mess up my original when I try and paint it the first time.
Oh, I thought you paint it digitally.
No.
No, you scan it and then you paint it and then you
Yeah.
scan it again. So you have
No.
both
Yeah. I
versions.
scan it and then I print it. And then I paint it.
Got it. Nice. I like that idea. Maybe I should try that one.
I'm very old school.
I mean, I'm older school than you because I only draw and sketch, and then I just file the paper in neatly in folders. Uh,
Oh, see, I don't do that. It's floating around. That was on my exercise bike.
Okay. So how has your day been so far?
Yeah, not bad. Yours?
It's funny how I just said let's dive straight into it, and then we're
And
just
then did.
chatting, we're chatting about sketching and drawing and uh, okay. Anyway, Philip K. Dick, uh, chro- chronologically, because I love chronology, born 1928,
Yeah.
died 1982, published his first novel in 1954, I think, or 52. Okay. Anyway, at the age of 24, published his first novel,
Mhm.
and then up until his death 30 years later, published a total of 44 novels and 120 short stories, is what I
Yes.
gathered from the episode. Prolific writer, I must say.
Yes. Definitely.
At least in comparison, I don't know what is to come, but in comparison to yesterday's author, who was like 100 years before him.
Yes.
Uh,
Although I will say it's a very different writing world, because a lot of those novels will and short stories will have been for the science fiction press of science fiction publishing of the time was largely magazine based. So
mhm.
you'd get short stories, you'd get chapters of stories, but they'd be in periodicals. So right from the off, there was that impetus to always have something
Yeah.
for a while. So I guess that probably stayed with him throughout his writing.
Uh-huh. So, but it's also like okay, this. Let's say his writing was between 1952 to 1982.
Hmm.
So it's like about one 130 years of period between Mary Shelley, because we are comparing it to yesterday's,
Yeah.
and uh, Philip. So of course, one is it's a different, if it is a different period, a different land as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you have like what is, I mean, I have no idea. So how was the writing scene in the Americas during this period in the 50s and
Um, I'm not hugely up on American writing specifically,
okay.
but in terms of the science fiction thing was of a very specific character.
Hmm.
It was very niche. It was very. It wasn't like today. Like everyone today will have heard of something sci-fi.
Yeah, but
It
we're
was.
also like America also, like they were already pioneering, with these superhero comics and stuff
Yeah.
coming up in the US. So it was not like Mary Shelley's time, where she was the one person who she
Yeah.
initiated this. And I'm assuming Philip K. Dick had his what's the term, contemporaries in his
Yes.
time.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. It was a very exciting time for readers of science fiction because people were doing
yeah,
all sorts of different things and had been for a very long time. Because we're following the series Prophets of Science Fiction, Philip K. Dick was next on that. But between Mary Shelley and Philip K. Dick, there is a whole slew of science fiction writers that we haven't covered. H.G. Wells is one of them. I think we're talking about him tomorrow.
yeah,
Um, Arthur C. Clarke, I think, was earlier. Yeah. So he's got a context of people who are writing beyond their time, if that makes sense.
hmm,
But he always sees the world in such a very different way. I think he changed the genre quite spectacularly.
I see. uh I mean, to be honest, again, just like Mary Shelley, I had never heard of Philip K. Dick. Of course, I've heard of his works through
Hmm.
some way or the other, because it always like there's always influence. People, even in people who make movies, they borrow from.
Mm.
Uh, like we'll come to that soon. Like how so much of his work has translated onto the screen.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, after his death,
Yes.
he never got to see it. um but I this another connection to the origin of this series that we have started, called Upload and Sync, uh which is like the moment the first I went back and scrolled through our chats, and it was when I explained the plot of Upload. I mean, in short, to you, and you immediately went, "Oh, this is similar to
Yeah.
is it Ubik?
Yearbook.
Ubik, okay."
Yeah.
And
Actually,
I
I
was
don't know
like,
how it's pronounced. I've only read it rather than heard it.
and
I've always said,
I had never heard of it, and I didn't know. And then you shared the Wikipedia page for this novel, and I immediately went, "What? This novel was written in the 1960s?"
yeah,
For me, it was okay. I hadn't watched this episode at that point, so for me, it was like science fiction 1960s. I mean,
yeah,
especially a plot like this, right, where involving computer and I think I remember remarking about a futuristic 1992
yes.
in the plot. I was like, oh, haha. Futuristic 1992, so funny. And but yeah, that was the reaction, and I just wanted to bring that up. uh
There's a on
yeah.
that. I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I had a conversation with a very old friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, Seb,
Hmm.
about geeks and nerds and our origins, and he described me as a fourth generation geek because my great grandparents had read H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Or no, he was you're a second generation or a third generation geek because my parents grew up watching Doctor Who,
Okay.
and I guess in his part of Australia that's not a thing so much. And then I thought, well, have your grandparents read Frankenstein? Have they read uh, War of the Worlds? You
Hmm.
know that I think geekery and nerdishness is viewed as a very new thing, and we've been around for ages.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know why
true.
that was in my head this morning when I was when
Maybe
I
it was
was.
not. I mean, it took a long time to recognize or
Mm,
identify uh, a section of people who are very passionate about uh, science fiction,
particular,
and yeah,
yeah,
as kind of or that sense of community wasn't there, maybe.
yeah, yeah. It's very much its own
Yeah.
culture now.
I mean, even Comic Con, I never. I mean, the first I heard of comic, I don't know what's the history. But like, I'll admit that I'm
Mm.
ignorant. So I don't know how, like, when was the first Comic Con or when this concept started.
No, I don't know
Should
either.
must be very recent because I at least I heard the first I heard of the phrase Comic Con or the concept of something like this was I think in the TV series Big Bang Theory,
Yeah,
and that's not much. That's like what 15 years ago. So, and I think in the last
1970.
oh, you just looked it up. Okay. we, I
I
know.
asked Uncle Google. 21st of March, 1970 was the first San Diego Comic Con.
Uh-huh. So again, yeah,
So
it's like not
right at
just
the middle of this.
50 years ago.
I and probably with you mentioning comics and stuff, that was probably. I mean, obviously it's called Comic Con, but comics and science fiction writing was at the core of it from the start.
Hmm.
So it would
Yeah.
have been something Philip K. Dick had interacted with, fairly likely.
Yeah. Also in his in the 70s is when he started writing The Man in the High Castle. Is
Yeah,
it okay? I mean, okay, we'll get to that.
yeah.
I mean, I said chronologically, but then we are jumping all over the place. It's fine. It's
But
fine.
so did he. It's appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's start with, do androids dream of electric sheep, or is it electronic sheep? What is it? Electric sheep.
Electric,
Electric sheep. Okay.
electric sheep.
So that's the book that
Yes,
Blade Runner is based
yes.
upon. Okay. I haven't watched. Neither have I read the book.
Oh my god, dude! And you want me to watch more movies? All right, that's going on your list. It's such a good film.
It is okay.
I mean, it really is. It's one of the. It's probably one of the best films I've ever watched.
Mhm.
Rutger Hauer. I mean, Rutger Hauer's entire performance is just phenomenal. The sets, the effects. It's like they managed to create a whole world. They did it very cleverly. But yeah, I've not seen the new one, but I want to.
Mm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, I will. Because yeah, now I'm really curious because I did not know. I mean, somehow the name Blade Runner uh, makes me imagine about those running blades, like remember
yeah,
Oscar Pistorius and all that. So
yeah.
uh yeah, I don't know, it's just something. um so he started with the concept of virtual reality in the
Hmm.
50s and 60s, and that somehow, when the visuals that they showed in the episode gave me you know Black Mirror vibes, but
Yes.
like very, but of course of that time,
Yeah.
with the technology of that time, like we did, like we defined, like we defined what is science fiction yesterday, so it is
Yeah.
very within the rules. um Also, like, the other thing was, this uh with the thought of humanoid robots and stuff. uh I I think recently I must have shared about ISRO's humanoid robot. If
Yeah.
there are any, there's no, of course there are no viewers right now, but people who are, if you're watching on YouTube later or you're listening on the podcast, any of the podcast platforms, uh, ISRO came up with a humanoid robot, a female humanoid robot
Mm.
called Vyom Mitra, which they're planning to send in future unmanned space missions, uh, to simulate. I mean, instead of sending an animal, or
Yeah.
before India sends its first human to space, they want someone who can simulate uh, a human body, so that they
Yeah.
can, yeah, it'll be just full of sensors and stuff, so that they can they know what happens to
Yeah.
humans. Like, I mean, of course NASA has already done all that, but yeah,
There's always more to learn
yeah.
because
So
we are sending people to space or intending to send people to space, but for longer time periods and in different conditions. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, private private space companies are already envisioning sending people to other planets.
Yeah.
So of course. uh, yeah, so people, yeah, if you're keen, you can go check it out. The other one is the other aspect that the one particular line that I don't remember, I don't recall who exactly mentioned it. I mean, of
Mm.
the various speakers, but they said something like, in 20 years, I mean, artificial intelligence will have human level complexity, or perhaps more. And this particular line, funny
Mm.
line, saying it could be that your children or your grandchildren will be married to an android. I was like,
Mm.
okay. I know that this line was said back in 2011, but still, that was a nice
Yeah. I I would disagree,
yeah,
but
exactly. I
perhaps
mean,
my
even I would
disagreement is
disagree
partly
in
hopeful.
2021, but
I would say maybe that the potential would be there, but I
yeah,
would
but that
say
was
that
an
probably
interesting line that I had never thought of something like that. I mean,
yeah.
I
Well, I mean, with again back to Mary Shelley, you're creating life. If you're creating a a being that can think like a
yeah,
human,
yeah,
then you are creating life, and therefore you have questions. Do they have a soul? Do they have a right to continue their life? These are the questions that have been
yeah.
asked in anything with an android in ever, that in terms of fiction. Um, do we have the right to do that? Is the question that I would ask. Possibly, do we have the funding to do that? Would be an earlier question these days. Um, but yeah, I think the time is coming when those questions will need to be addressed.
But one is like, about the interesting thing about computers and computing, uh, is with increasingly, stuff becoming open source.
Mm,
Uh, that concept of, funding and most of research
mm,
being pioneer, or channeled by universities or people, institutions with money, is no longer the case, right? It's
yeah.
like people sitting at home, with powerful enough computer are able to code stuff, create
Yeah.
bots. And so it's like
3D printing.
exactly, yeah, that. So mm, it's so unpredictable. We don't know where technology is. This is like that.
Yeah.
It's the most unpredictable period in human history, I would say, because we don't
Yeah.
know where we'll be in the next 5 years,
Yeah.
let alone predict
I
10 or
think
20 years in the
it's
future.
also we're aware that it's changing because I suppose you've always had that thing where we don't know what's coming in the next 5 years, but now we're aware that it will be different
Yeah,
rather than it will be the same. I mean, my uh, training is as an archaeologist, so some of the time I think how much the same we are
hmm,
as things in the past. As basically, we've been the same since the Roman period, or since we've had written records. Our
yeah,
cultures have changed, the people we worship have changed, the way we worship have changed, the jobs we do.
yeah,
Um, but we're essentially the same people, and we're essentially worried about the same things over 5,000 years. So probably things will change. Um, and I guarantee you there will still be someone saying, oh, kids have it so easy these days, or there'll be someone complaining about their neighbors,
yeah, or saying
humans
back
will
in
still
my day
essentially be
and all that.
humans. Yeah, yeah. But I guess the question is, if humans are still essentially humans, will the androids still essentially be humans too?
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a
but
show, was it called Being Human? I can't remember, but there was a show about an android. I think it may have been based on Asimov's concepts a
okay,
few years ago with, was it Eric Banner? I don't remember. I have no memory, but it was really good. I liked it. But it
yeah.
asked that question: where would an android like this fit in our society?
Yeah. Also,
Um,
if you watched the movie Her,
yes,
it's about, yeah, the but it's a digital assistant, but still it's it's still an artificial intelligence
yeah,
having a
yeah.
thing.
I
But
Robot, but I guess we'll talk about that in the Asimov day.
yeah, okay. But yeah, my point was just in not just, I mean, in relation to, if we had posts, if you remember, from I think last year, when there were of people in 1920 being
Mm,
asked to imagine a world in 2020 or something like that, like 100 years from now there will be flying cars.
yeah,
So my point was they used to think 100 years from now.
yeah.
But it's like in 2021 we don't know what's going to happen in 2022 anymore.
Yeah.
That's how fast stuff's changing. There can be a flying car at the end of this year, or the end of the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. We don't
I've
know.
seen I've seen some of the prototypes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like we don't know
No.
what's going to happen. uh,
Or what ultimately will be unviable. Like, I have a T-shirt that doesn't fit me anymore. It barely fit me when I got it, but I loved it so much. I might actually cut it out and stitch it onto a T-shirt that does fit me. That says they lied to us, and it's all of the list of things in our childhoods that we thought that we would have, like cures for certain things and stuff.
mhm.
And just at the bottom of all of it, it just says, "I want my jetpack." And of course, we've seen so many attempts to make the jetpack
Yeah,
feasible,
yeah,
and it's a great idea, but
yeah.
it's not quite going to work.
It's not.
not for mass single travel.
Yeah. Was it Tom Scott or was it Mark Rober? I'm so confused between the two. But one of them
Mm.
attempted using the jetpack, right? I mean, they used those
Yeah. Oh, I
reinforced,
think it might have been Tom Scott.
yeah, reinforced, this metal arms, so that
Yeah.
because the force uh, from the jetpack, it affects your limbs.
Yeah.
So you need to have something to stand on and all that.
So you don't compress your spine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But so there's like so many designs, you're right. So
Yeah.
many interesting designs over the years, what we still haven't. I mean, now there are drones, so you don't need. to go physically go any place. They can
Yeah.
just send a drone.
Yeah.
So it's like before jetpacks
Very
become a reality, they're
useful.
already outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was about virtual reality. But then he another okay, yet another interesting aspect. I think I was like he borrowed from uh, it's not exactly dreams, but it's something
Yeah.
they called as imagined experience, which is also it's similar to a dream. He's like they discussed they at briefly they didn't dwell on it, but they briefly discussed about the differences between a real experience and an imagined experience. And then
Yes.
uh, and Philip uses that concept of imagined experience to saying something like an external force can alter it if
Yeah.
and
I
then
think that was something that was always on his mind.
yeah. So, so you can alter and make the character believe that they are this and that's like it's a mix between virtual experience and imagined experience, where the
Yeah.
character does not know if this is his own imagination or it is being fed to him.
Yeah.
uh, because I don't know the plot, so I'm just going off the
Yeah.
whatever
This
they
this
described in the
would be the
episode.
plots for I Can Remember For You Wholesale, which is Total Recall,
Mhm.
and to an extent Blade Runner. Um, and
Yeah.
there's so many modern films. Existenz, which is a really niche film.
One
Uh,
particular scene I think they showed was that there's a special
Nostalgic.
agent, and then he does not know if he is a special agent who is supposed to be a normal guy, or is he a normal guy who who
Who is
is
pretending to be a special
yeah,
agent
yeah,
on
yeah.
holiday. Yeah.
That was I mean, like they're so meta.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
after a while it's like I don't know what's going on, and neither
Yeah.
does the author. So it's
Well, it's
all that's the
there's a
beauty of
film.
it.
Yeah, that's what he was always thinking. Is this reality the one that's real?
Yeah.
They touched on it a few times that he may have had some issues with mental health, which I don't know about, so I won't speculate on. But also, we know he dabbled in several hallucinogenic drugs.
Drugs, yeah. Yes.
Um,
They said he may have been schizophrenic is what
yeah,
I mean. It wasn't like we don't know for sure is how
yeah,
they implied. So yeah. So it's like he either I mean it was either drug induced or through his uh you know schizophrenia or mental health issues. So he used to have these visuals, and then he
mm,
used these visuals he converted them in onto his creative works.
yeah,
uh, and that's one thing I found very I think they at the end of the episode they kind of mentioned, like they touched upon how inspirational that is,
yeah,
because he was a troubled soul, and then he used all the stuff that he was going through, I mean all that paranoia
mm,
and all that, into something good, which is like
yeah,
all this I mean, of course he died before it was fully realized, so he never understood or he never saw what became of his
mm.
works. uh,
In the mainstream, at least.
yeah.
Yeah,
But still he ended up he just like Mary Shelley, he was a pessimist, more of
yes.
a pessimist than an optimist, I mean, at least in his works. um
Again, I will disagree with you. I see her as an optimist, but maybe more of a realist. I know that the documentary considered her a pessimist, but some of her
okay.
works are
Yeah,
about the
I agree,
human
yeah.
spirit triumphing. But yes,
Okay. Her later works, you mean,
well, no,
after?
Frankenstein I see as a hopeful thing that
Oh,
we
okay.
can make those choices. It
Yeah, like I
yeah
admitted yesterday, I don't know how Frankenstein ends, so Yeah, like
Not
you're right.
well. Not well for everyone concerned.
Oh, maybe that is why they called her a pessimist then.
Mm,
But yeah, of course, we
yeah,
don't know how she really was.
yeah. And everyone has a different take on most art. So that's just my take on
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Uh, and then I mean, okay, coming back to Philip. I mean, well, like what I was saying. What was I saying? Yeah. So it's he used this like for me it was I could not help but draw parallels with Ted Kaczynski, who was the Unabomber, because even
Mm,
he had those he went through this paranoia and not trusting the government and all that, but he he went through a very destructive path,
mm,
whereas Philip K. Dick used used that, and he channeled it into writing, and so it's
mm.
like this choices. Uh, you can go in like
Well, I mean, yes, but also it's a very difficult subject to talk about because we neither of us have any training in psychology,
mhm.
and I think it's an area where it's easy to generalize,
Yeah, of
perhaps.
course, yes.
So I am wary of doing that. But the thing that occurred to me when they were talking about the fact that he was in many ways quite troubled is that brilliance is very rarely comfortable. You think about
Mm.
Van Gogh, who could translate unimaginable turmoil, both mental and emotional, into
Yeah,
some of the most beautiful pieces of art we have as a community, as a species.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's those different ways of looking at the world
So
that make you able to produce these works that make us think, but also make you singularly unfit in society's eyes to be part of society, which I think is particularly cruel irony.
hmm.
But
So
yes.
is it like they were uh, each of people like they were geniuses ahead of their time? So you do you think they were misunderstood? I mean, we appreciated them posthumously, most of these people.
Mm.
Uh, it-
I think we should probably state that we don't appreciate Ted Kaczynski posthumously or at all.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's over.
yeah,
I'm coming back to Van
yeah,
Gogh
yeah.
and
I just didn't want him to be included in that group.
no, 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 no. I just
I
in
didn't
my
think he
head
was.
I just drew a parallel because they both lived at during the same time, and 70s
Mm,
were when is this secret spilling out of Edgar Hoover's FBI, all that espionage, and
mm,
there was a lot of mistrust post the Vietnam War, at least
yeah,
in USA, uh, about the government and this increasing fear of government surveillance, and that was, I think, the
yeah,
concept, like, when the concept of they was born, in
mm,
quotes, as in they are listening, they are watching, as in
yeah,
they. So it's like it's us versus they, which I think still continues today with
yeah.
all these
Oh,
conspiracy
and
theories about
yeah.
anti-vaccine and all that.
Well, I may disagree with you on that one.
It, I
But
mean,
yes,
but that's the language that is there, that is
yeah,
used in those
it's
posts.
the language
When
utilized, but I think
I read about,
it's
it's like they don't want us to know, they don't want us to behave
yes,
this way, they want to control us. It's like they. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, who exactly is they? It's so, yeah, I mean.
yeah, it's a nebulous concept.
So yeah,
But I think
that's
also you've got to remember that America in the '60s was a place where considered you to have communist leanings,
Mhm.
you would be hounded out of jobs. You'd have to go to a court to answer questions about whether or not you were a communist, and mostly the evidence against these people at the time would have been, oh well, they don't like people being turfed out of their homes, or
yeah,
oh, they
yeah.
like this kind of music and stuff. And I mean, McCarthyism and we call them the McCarthy witch trials
Mhm.
because it was a general sense of paranoia against dissenters. And I think in the '70s, the dissenters started being the ones whose voices were listened to more.
Mhm.
I think that's what we're getting with the rise of conspiracy theories as well.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of power in the conspiracy theory because you feel like you're the only one who knows the truth.
Yeah.
And again, we come back to the question of altered reality
Yeah.
and which reality is the reality.
And yeah, okay. Especially since you brought that up,
Mm.
I just read that on Philip K. Dick's Wikipedia page that he was visited by two FBI agents in the 60s when he was living with his third wife, because she used to write about socialism, and she was
Mm-hmm.
more of a left wing activist. And then so that maybe kind of all those things kind of it might have influenced his
Yeah.
or at least aided his paranoia of being watched. And
Yes. Because some of it was true.
yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, FBI later admitted to it,
Yeah.
randomly tapping telephones and all that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was true. uh, so okay, that brings us to the prophecies of what
Mm.
like
What were
yesterday we
described
just
as
discussed.
prophecies.
Yeah. So we'll start with virtual reality, and then we'll go into parallel
Mm.
universes and all that. So he Philip K. Dick, at least the episode, the people who talked about him uh, mentioned that he prophesied, he predicted that virtual reality would be, and just directly quoting from the episode, would
Mm-hmm.
become an unhealthy escape from daily life.
Hmm.
And especially to the younger generation, it would be easy to lose oneself
Mm.
in it. And on the addictive nature of virtual reality is like he predicted it, like according to them 50 years
Mm.
before virtual reality was a thing.
I think yes. I think the script of their show, or rather the tenor of their show, is to say the word predict when what they actually mean is speculated upon the possibility of, which takes longer to say. But yes,
Mm.
I think rather than him, there's a great uh, there's a great emphasis on people being able to prophesy the future or predict the
Yeah,
future. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whereas I think
At the
what we're
time,
actually
I
doing
think,
is
I'm
saying
sure
some of their ideas turned out to be true.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
I meant at the time of writing. Even they are. I'm sure the writers, or the people that we are talking about,
Mm.
didn't exactly mean it as a prophecy. They just were
Yeah, no,
writing
no.
fiction,
I just wanted to
according to them.
clarify
No.
because
I mean,
yeah,
I know. Of course,
yeah,
I'm just telling. I'm,
yeah, yeah,
I'm, I'm also just
yeah.
uh, speculating
Hmm.
because I don't know what they were going through. But I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, maybe like they didn't mean it as a prophecy. Even maybe
Yes.
they were writing it as fiction, but then it turns out that, like you said, some of it
Yeah.
turned out to be true. So
Yeah.
in hindsight, yeah, they're like, okay, they were great prophets and stuff like that.
Yes.
Uh, the next part was this thing called minority report or
Mm.
precognition and all that.
Oh, one
uh
of my favorites.
okay, so I'll let you, because
Uh, so this is another film that you need to watch.
okay.
Minority Report uh, is based on the idea that there are people who can see the future,
Mhm.
and that those people are utilized by law enforcement to predict who is going to murder somebody. And so that person is interrupted before they can commit the murder.
Okay,
So the precog will come up with a prediction within 3 days, usually, but
so
often
precog is
less
a
time.
computer, or
No, it's a person.
it's a person. Okay. Oh wow.
Hmm. That's the ethical dilemma. Is these people are being used as computers.
Mhm.
They have no life of their own. But the other ethical dilemma is that sometimes there's a set of three, and sometimes one of them will predict a different outcome. So in Minority Report, what Philip K. Dick is examining is our fate set? Or can we still make a choice? If everything happens the same way, Is there still a divergence point? So yeah, it's looking at whether if you have this pre-crime program and you take every single person, can you prove that that person really would have done that murder at that moment, or would they have changed their mind?
Okay. Does it do you mean does it involve the precog predicts that there is about to be a crime?
Yes,
Do they go and how do they? It's like you can't arrest someone before they commit a crime. So
but
is that the
they've changed the
dilemma?
legislation. Yes,
Uh-huh.
they've changed the legislation so that they can, and they have been. It's sort of a pilot program, and it's coming to the point where they get to ratify it into law permanently.
Got it.
When these questions start arising in the story. So there are a few different examples. If a murder is going to be committed with premeditation, the precogs get more warning because the person's thinking about it for longer. But if it's a crime of passion, you only get like an hour. Yeah. And you have to work out from their visions, because it comes through as a few different visions, where it's going to be. So this new generation of detectives are working out from the visions who's going to be the victim, who's going to be the killer. I don't want to spoiler it if you haven't seen it, because it's really good. But
I'm keen to watch it.
The rub comes when one of the predictions comes in, and I think this is actually in the trailer, so I doubt I'm actually spoilering it that much. And the detective who's been doing the pilot program is seen to be murdering someone.
Wow, okay.
And he goes, but I don't even know who that is. And then it goes from there, and then you have all of these questions about.
It's like the precog predicted it, but then it's so far in the future, so the character.
No, 3 days. They gave a date.
3 days, okay.
They get the date and the name.
But this person does not even know.
Yeah.
Yet. So, wow. Oh,
yeah,
that's a nice plot.
It's really good. I don't know if that is the exact plot of the book, because I've not read that one, but yeah, it's always these questions about what's right and what's possible and what's real.
Yeah.
They named the I think possibly Philip K. Dick named them the precogs after detective fiction writers. So there was Agatha Christie, and I think Arthur, Conan Doyle, and Dash for Dashiell Hammett. But yeah, I'm not much like.
So it's like precogs are a race of human, or is like
no, that is part of the. That's part of.
It's
the
part
problem.
of this plot. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll wait.
They are people who have a rare ability, very, very rare ability.
Okay.
Possibly a very rare ability that has been specifically engineered in an extremely unethical way, and yeah.
Okay.
And they are considered to not have the right to choose whether or not they do this as well. So they're considered as tools rather than as people.
Okay. Nice. I mean, yeah. I need to watch that. That goes on my list.
Yes. There's a whole. Oh yeah. Don't eat while you're watching it, though. I should warn you. There's a whole thing with
it's
gory.
Okay.
There's one. It's not gory for the whole film, and then there's this one bit in the middle. You should know about that.
That just catches you by surprise, and like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. I've recommended it to people before, and they've gone, "Why didn't you tell me?"
That has happened to me in the past. I mean, of course, not by recommendation, but I'm just watching something which is like a totally, unexpected scene just comes up, and I'm like, I did not see that coming.
It's like, oh God, why?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that, but then there are also films like Final Destination. Like you know what you're getting into, right? You're prepared to like you're sitting on the edge. Like I know it's coming. But then
I watched that in the cinema the first time.
Okay.
I didn't know what was coming because I hadn't seen the trailer. I went because my friends were going, and I was like, oh, it's the cute guy from Roswell. All right, I'll go. I don't watch horror. I was saying this again the other day. I don't watch horror and I don't write horror. It was something I said a lot, and then I realised after writing a story 2 years ago about a plant that was a gardener of human remains, that actually I do write horror and I quite enjoy horror. And I've always thought I was scared of it. And then one of my favourite films is 13th Warrior, that most people think is terrible. And like, within the first 20 minutes, somebody's head is torn off and it splurts all over the screen. But in my defense, the first time I watched it, the screen was this big and you couldn't tell. But now, like, I've watched it recently on a bigger TV. I was like, oh, this is really gross.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that reminds me of that one scene in Game of Thrones where one of the characters uses his thumbs to punch
Oh.
into the eye socket to kill.
Oh, like in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, okay. I have.
Bristly.
Yeah, and then
I haven't seen or read Game of Thrones. I am a rare nerd.
Burst, like, opens the skull like opening a watermelon or a coconut.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
Gross.
Somebody should have warned me about this.
Thanks for the realism of this scene, guys. Would have been nice if we'd known in advance.
Especially and also the sound design guys. I mean, they use those squelching kind of like. Did you have to? Couldn't you have just used music or something?
Oh no! It's a point of pride. I mean, I've sat with and I've done Foley for theatre productions, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. I get it. I mean,
there's a lot of random vegetables and ice in bowls and stuff, and you're just like,
yeah.
Celery. Celery really sounds like a broken limb.
Wow.
That'll be something to think about when you're eating your salad.
Yeah, just
You're
casually
welcome.
munching.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming back. So that's the second prophecy. That because this precogs are, even if they are not exactly humans, but there's so much surveillance, cameras and stuff all over the place these days that intelligence corporations or institutions are able to predict crime or an attack or something like that before it can happen, and
using
are able
probabilities
to and are able
statistics.
to stop it. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the second of his prophecies as described in the episode.
Yeah.
And that kind of we can using that we can segue into his final part, coming to the man in the high castle, because they use that the precogs, where he said that if every time the precog stops a crime, it creates an alternative, it creates a parallel universe where the crime did not take place. As in the reality where the crime happened and then the consequences are going on, but the precog stopped and then it created a parallel universe. So that brings us into Philip K. Dick's universe, where there are multiple plots happening simultaneously in the same timeline, as in I don't know if I said that right.
It's multiverse theory.
Yes, exactly.
Because I said things happening in different ways at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
The trousers of time, as Terry Pratchett called them.
Oh. So was he the first person who used this concept of multiverses, or do you know?
I don't know. I think certainly he's probably one of the people who did it best.
Okay. Even I'm not aware of. I mean, if he was influenced, did he take influence from somewhere? Because it was during this late 60s. 70s period, so I don't know, because there's a lot of happening, a lot of things, because I think even comic books, comics of these superhero comics started having these multiverses into their plot lines and stuff. I'm pretty sure
I think,
DC has something like that, but I don't know when.
Well, I think at what time. Again, you've got the time period. You've got a time when you've had two major wars that affected all of the Western world. I know we call them world wars, but people have been having global scale conflicts for a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
But
true.
a very Western centric mindset to call them world wars. But they were such huge events that it was very tempting to go, well, what if it went a different way?
Yeah.
And I think you start to see that coming through in fiction. But according to the documentary, one of the things that really shaped his idea that there might be another universe is the loss of his sister, because he was born a twin, and his sister died 6 weeks after birth, and his whole life he had this sort of conviction that there was another universe where she lived and he died, and how her life turned out and what she was doing, and he could fully visualize her in his imagination. And so every time he's approaching the question of multiple realities, it sort of stems from that, well, what if it was me, or what if this happened, or so I guess there's a cultural shift towards looking at multiple reality and alternate events. Yeah. But also there's definitely a personal drive towards looking at the same sort of thing.
So it's like so how is this parallel universe created? So it's like there is a point in time where there is two possibilities two outcomes that can happen, and then each outcome creates a different universe. Is that how it happens? Because I tried watching Man in the High Castle. I mean, at least one of, I don't know how many of his works dabbled in parallel universes and all that concept. For me, at least the prime television series was kind of very slow moving. So the concept very like interested me a lot, but then it the visuals and the way it was produced was not as appealing, in at least in my opinion, which is why I kind of gave up somewhere in the middle of the second season. But yeah, I like that idea where it's like they dwell upon what if, the concept of what if this happened instead of that. uh, so yeah, I mean, have you read any other works, or have you watched any other films where they?
Oh, loads, so many I can't even think of one. Yeah, so it's not just like there comes a point where there are two choices. It could be many choices. There are infinite universes in existence constantly, and each one is based on every person in existence, every animal in existence's choices. I mean, it's things like, oh, you had a banana for breakfast and skipped getting breakfast while you were out, so you missed the train crash, or it's connections of different series of events. Again, it's a very human-centric concept, but it's one that makes a great deal of sense to me. But I mean, I suppose one of the biggest areas where I've come across it is fan fiction, because every fan fiction is in effect an alternate universe where they make slightly different choices, because it's not the author's voice. It's it's a manner of exploring stories in a way for young writers to get into, or new writers to get into, or just because you enjoy the world and you want to play in it. But yeah, AU is such a common tag in the fanfiction fanfiction archives. It just means alternate universe. Like, oh well, we're taking the concepts of this, but in this universe, this person didn't die, or in this universe,
so it's like
this person came in at a slightly different point, and it changes the whole narrative. And
so the story is taking place at the same time as the original version of the original author's version, but the characters are making different choices. Is it?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's that, but they're all at high school in modern times, because that's a very common fan fiction trope, because it's a thing that most fan fiction writers who are starting out are experiencing firsthand. So they want to imagine how those characters would respond in their universe.
So it's like what we call modern adaptations.
Yeah,
right?
that in that case, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least in the film terminology, it's a modern.
Yeah.
We like to say a modern adaptation of this novel or something like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, got it. Uh, so it's he okay. So in I okay. Uh, I lost my train of thought there briefly. I watched this movie called Butterfly Effect. I think it's a
Mm.
2004 movie. I don't know if you watched it. You watched it, okay?
Chaos theory, yes.
Yeah. So that also it's similar, but I don't know. Because it's a long time since I've watched it. But when you said, I think one of this, it kind of triggered this
Mm.
memory for me, and where I think somewhere in the movie, I could be wrong, where it's like he's on the train platform. His parents are newly divorced, and then uh, he, he has a choice. He's on the platform and the train is leaving. His mom is in the train because she's leaving his
Mm.
dad, and his dad is standing behind holding his hand. So he has this choice of, you know, l- get like letting go of his dad's hand and then running and catching the train. So in that in his ultimately he imagines it. I mean, he has
Mm.
that urge, but he does not follow through on it.
Mm.
So he grows up grows up with his dad, but then in that they also show this alternate reality or alternate
Yeah.
universe where he did catch the train and ended up growing up living with his mom.
Mm.
So where he grows up like his he has a different personality altogether, where he's
Yeah.
somehow it's like it was those tiny things, because like they said, you are the sum total of all your experiences.
Yeah.
So his upbringing is a lot different with his mom somehow.
Yeah.
And because at least I don't know, maybe it's because based on the city or the place that he grows up in, that universe or something. But somehow it's like he's more confident in that universe
Mm.
than he's here. He's more reserved and not very introverted. There he's more outgoing, and he he's easier finds it easier to talk to people and all. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, one tiny choice in his when he was 10 years old, and
Yeah.
at least that's how they portrayed it. And it's like, okay, that I
Yeah.
found that very interesting when I watched it.
Yeah.
um, but this point that you said, that like yesterday also we kind of discussed it about this thing that of authors borrowing from their personal life.
Mm.
And like you said that he used to imagine his twin sister was alive
Mm.
in an alternate universe. And I think even the concept of precog it was also borrowed from his own life, where I think he
Mm.
got this vision where there was something wrong with his son or something. And then
Yeah.
he just rushed him to the hospital, and then there was actually something wrong with his
Yeah.
baby. And then he was like,
Yeah.
okay, now I can predict the future.
Yeah.
And that's how the concept of precog came into his mind. And then so yeah, I know we already talked about this yesterday. So it's like how much is borrowed from personal life. We
Mm.
see that as a very like a constant feature in all these authors works, where even though they are writing science fiction, which is like fiction, but so much of
Mm.
it is influenced from their personal lives. And um, so like that's I think that was the last point that I had. If you have
Mm.
anything to add. um,
Um. Well, again, you you mentioned earlier about the FBI and sort of paranoia in general. One of
yeah.
the things that he saw our society moving towards was not just control, but corruption and corporation. So
Mhm.
Ubik, which is the one that I read probably inadvisedly when I was 12, maybe 14.
Wow.
Um, and I say inadvisedly just because it was so confusing. I think I needed to be a bit older to get it. It was one of those books that there's only been two books I've had to stop halfway, go
Mhm.
and read something else, and then come back to. And that's one of them. Uh, but again, that one brings together a lot of these concepts. You've got the multinational corporations. You've got, is the reality I'm in the truth?
Mhm.
Or is this other reality true? Are
Yeah.
there two realities? Um, what's going on with this? There's massive product endorsement. There's that question about whether you know yourself, whether you can trust your own uh, perception of the
Yeah.
world. Um, and it would, I mean, also I was 14 and I didn't like horror, and there was a lot of mummified bodies around, and I was a bit like, I got over that. Um, but yeah, it's one of those ones where it makes you think about, well, yeah, actually, if we had this technology, in this instance, it's technology to do with after death processes.
Mhm.
Um, this probably would happen. You know, we would have these corporations who were controlling when we could see our loved ones who had passed and speak with them again.
Yeah.
And what's the ethics of keeping them, and what's it like for them being kept, and do they know they're dead, and is this their reality or our reality? Um, so yeah, you've always got that. I think it was in the documentary. It was Ridley Scott who said he never sees a perfect world. He always sees ones that are a bit grubby and a bit rusty. And
Yeah.
I think that's what makes them so fascinating, because they are grounded in our the truth of our reality, which is that things aren't perfect, but they also look beyond. Um, yeah, and that's what makes them such good films,
Mhm.
because they ask you to question, but they also go, but we're all still people,
Yeah.
and we always will be still people. Whichever universe we're in, people will always act roughly the same.
Yeah.
So, what happens when someone doesn't? Uh, Adjustment Bureau, uh, again, is that concept of state management of your life, but also you have the choices that change the direction of your life. But
Yeah.
in that, it's more they're trying to they've got a map of where they want you to go, and they're trying to keep you on that route.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what happens if you see behind the pantomime and go, oh, that's what they're doing? You know, it's not fate. I have
Yeah.
no control over my destiny. This is what happens. And then
And
you
that
get the
that is where
chance to
paranoia
change
is
it.
born.
Yeah. And then it's having the chance to change it. And what happens if you dare to go against that?
Yeah.
Um, very, it's
So is that where this concept of do androids dream of electric sheep? The
hmm.
word sheep comes in. I mean, that I was just thinking of the title.
Yeah, because it's that thing where in order to fall asleep, humans count sheep, or you have this. The old cure for insomnia is we'll just sit there and imagine sheep jumping over a fence, and you count them and you drift
Mhm.
off.
Because I noticed this
Yeah,
one they didn't really say it out, but then they this one visual where they showed the title as "Do Androids Dream of Electric Frog," and then there was this scratched out and there was
yeah,
sheep written, and I was like,
yeah,
"That's curious that you showed this and then you don't
yeah,
talk about it."
yeah,
Like, did it was it he who did it, or is that you who's
yeah.
planting this idea in my head?
Well,
Right.
it's possible. Like, I mean, as an author, I will go, oh no, this is the best way of expressing this, and then I'll have an editor go, no one will get that. That's really niche. Just change it to this, and they'll get exactly what you're saying. And it's
Yeah.
possible that's a result of that. Like, no one counts frogs but you, Philip. Everyone else counts sheep. Say
Yeah.
sheep.
uh, okay. There's one thing. I was thinking of something that never mind. Okay. Um, I forgot totally. Oh yeah, yeah. One last thing before we close. There was this one they didn't really explain. They one of those was speakers, narrators. They uh, referred to him as the Charles Dickens of science fiction
Mm.
because and in their words it was because of his density of work, and I didn't really understand it, what that meant, like what is, like,
Hmm.
why did is that reference?
So again, I said about at the time science fiction writers were working through periodicals and they'd have a chapter or a short story published every month or every week.
Mhm.
That's how Charles Dickens worked, and Conan Doyle as well. Is you wrote for deadlines for fast turnover. Um,
Okay.
so what you get is a huge amount of work that is very detailed and in some places concise and some places not. And you sort of see those concepts being fitted into different genres because you have a particular editor who likes a particular theme and you're writing for that editor.
Mhm.
Um, so I think what they meant was he was prolific, but he also had a talent for
Churning out quality
knowing,
content. Just-
well, yeah, quality
of course,
content, but
yeah.
also the kind of content that captures the imagination in the same way as Dickens did.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, yeah, I think that's what.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I found that curious, because you're just referring, like calling him. I get that when usually people say, when they say he is the dash, I mean referring to
Mm.
another person of this,
Yeah,
but then both are authors, and then I found that very curious
it's such a
term.
marketing thing. It's such a marketing thing for me. It's like, oh yeah, they're the this of this, and like,
Yeah,
no, they it's a you can see that they are similar in this particular aspect, but yeah, it's a lazy soundbite comparison thing, I
yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get
Uh,
that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like sometimes you do that with places as well, right? Like
yeah,
you said, that's ideal. Like this is the Venice of the East, or
yeah,
something like that. So it's, yeah,
yeah,
it's marketing. You're right.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so closing thoughts.
Read and watch some Philip K. Dick stuff. It's great.
Yes, naturally. uh okay, tomorrow, that's about, I think that tomorrow we are going to be talking about
H.G.
H.G.
Wells
Wells. Yeah.
and time
Okay.
travel, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Time
Uh,
travel and ethics.
okay. Uh, People. Okay. This, it'll go. Podcast will go later. So for people who are watching it on YouTube, if you are watching, we'll be live again. Like we today at 3 p.m. Central European, 2 p.m.
Mhm,
UK, and 1 p.m. UST
mhm,
on Twitch. And I leave the links to Lauren's all the socials and stuff. It'll be
mhm.
in the description. And anything else? It's just
Not that I can
trying
think
to.
of. Also, to your internet areas.
Ah,
I
yeah,
mean,
of course.
obviously,
Yeah,
yeah,
I just copy pasted
yeah,
from the previous, and then post. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
yes, if there's someone who is watching this for the first time, yeah, you're right. All the things will be in the description. Do check it out. Um, for the podcast listeners, uh, this is, I think, the second episode,
Yeah,
and
of our mini series of 8.
yeah. So, but after this, there's another thing that we haven't yet disclosed, but this, I think you should look forward to it.
I believe we disclosed yesterday.
We did.
Yeah, right at the end.
Oh, I forgot. Oh yes, yeah, we did. Okay, okay.
It's not a
Fine.
secret
It's
anymore.
fine. It's not. It's not a secret anymore. Yeah, unfortunately. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. I think. Yeah. See you. See you tomorrow then.
Yeah, see you
That's it.
tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay. Ending stream.